Hey everybody, welcome to a very special Project Play podcast. I am James, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about quite a few important things that happened today. This is Tuesday, September 30th, 2014. Let's get started. Alright, so first off, the closed beta for the racing game The Crew officially starts today, and let's take a look at the games coming out for PlayStation 4 today. Those of you lucky PlayStation 4 owners, PlayStation Network, we're getting Chariot, Future Iridium EP Deluxe, Pure Solar, and the Great Architects, Second Chance Heroes. Those are the PlayStation Network games. Now for the PS4 games that are launching, also I think they have may have digital copies on the network. We've got Natural Doctrine, which I've heard a lot about, but I haven't looked into it yet, so I'm going to be doing that in the next few days. Also, we have Sherlock Holmes, Crimes and Punishments. And last but not least, we have Lord of the Rings, Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor. This game looks amazing. I got it at launch last night, and I've been playing it ever since. I've got a lot of good points that I want to talk to you guys about, so let's get started. Alright, from the first few seconds of the game, there's one point that I could already see that I was going to be really happy about with this game, and that's that it does have character development. Now some of you might be thinking, oh yeah, that's obvious, we already saw the trailers, we know that it goes over this character who's lost his family and he's getting revenge on Sauron. Yes, that is in the trailer, but if one thing is true today about video games, it's that you can't trust the trailers. Almost never. The people that create and develop the trailers, their job is to get people interested no matter what. So if they have to lie, they will. If they want to make it seem like a totally entire different game, this goes for movie trailers as well. If they want to make it seem like a total different title or a total different story, they will, just so they can sell it to the audience, which is fine. I love the trailers, but this trailer actually did give you an idea about how this game is going to be, which is really good, because this I think barely happens. So with I don't want to, this is a spoiler-free podcast, by the way, on Shadows of Mordor. When you start playing, the first time it gives you control in your hands, you can already tell the world. You already understand the fluid motions, you understand the way to play. It's because it's very similar to previous games. Now people have all been arguing about, oh, this game, it's a ripoff of Assassin's Creed. The newest one I've heard is it's a ripoff of Arkham Asylum, the Arkham games. And it has similar aspects to it, but by no means is it direct copy from it. If anything, I felt like this was kind of an original take on some of that, and it's not like that's even a bad thing. Like, if a game is taking ideas from other great games to make it work, I mean, that still interests me. I know that, because that gives you some promise that the gameplay is going to be good. I really enjoyed the Assassin's Creed, most of the Assassin's Creed games. I really enjoyed all of the Arkham games, and so I mean the gameplay is similar. Now, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, basically the similarities between the games are the fighting combat system. It's kind of like, you're fighting, you get surrounded by several enemies, and you can attack them with, I guess it's square on PlayStation. I'm getting used to the controls. I'm so used to Xbox, so that's terrible. But anyway, so basically you can attack them with one button, and then when they get ready to attack you, a little icon appears above their head, and you counter by pressing like the triangle button, which for Xbox users that would be a Y. And so basically it's kind of like that. Throughout the game you get these little attributes, perks that allow you to have different combat scenarios where you can do different combos on your enemies, which is pretty cool. I mean, it's something we've seen in almost every game now, every fighting game, I will say. But it's pretty cool. Now that's that's what the game mechanics. That's my idea on the game mechanics. I will say, if I could describe it with one word, I would say it's very fluid. Once you get the controller in your hand, you instantly know how to do everything, and everything just flows right. Like when you're moving, it's just the speed, just the mechanics. They're good. I give those a 10 out of 10. Now, storyline. I've already talked about the character development, and which is very good to me because I love a story. I'm a sucker for a story, a good story anyway, and it's very good from the start. It puts you in Italian shoes. It introduces you to him as a guy. It tells you what his morals are. It introduces this character so that when he goes through this process, when he goes through this story, you understand what he's feeling. And that's always very important to me, and I'm glad they used it, because I just feel like character development hasn't been the best in previous Lord of the Rings titles. But anyway, let's talk about sound design. Now you guys are like, I don't want to hear about sound. God, like, why would I want to hear about sound for a game? It's pretty important in this game, especially since this is kind of Monolith's take off of not only the Lord of the Rings franchise, but off of the films. You're going to hear a lot of sounds that are very similar to sounds you heard in the film, and they kind of trigger responses, at least for me, since I'm pretty familiar with the films. There's certain sounds that you hear them and you're like, oh crap, that is not good. I know what that is. You'll kind of know when you play the game, if you want to play the game. But it's kind of stuff like that. Like you hear something and you're like, oh, that's not good. Or you hear something and you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, because you know exactly what it is. Like the orc sounds, very familiar. Their talking patterns and their voices sound very familiar. So overall, they did a good job with that. Now, with the soundtrack, the music you hear, this is an interesting point. It's very original. I don't remember hearing most of these tracks anywhere, which is... It could be a good thing or a bad thing to some people. Some people want it to be true to the films or what have you. It's very original, and I personally kind of like it because it starts you off and it makes you... It feels like a totally different game. Total different experience, total different feel to how you play and how you're going through the story. The visuals, for me, they aren't fantastic. I'd give them probably an 8 out of 10. There's a few things in the game, and this is true for most other titles. There's some things you'll see in the game where you'll be like, oh, that looks really good, or that texture is like right on it. It looks really good. And then there's other stuff that it doesn't look like they took the time to keep it up to par with everything else. So with that said, kind of like a zoomed out version or a zoomed out view of the entire environment, there will be little details you'll be able to pick out and be like, that doesn't look right. But you don't really have time to pay attention to that, and I'll get to that in a second with the enemy system. So far, you probably want to know, is it worth $60? I'm going to start by saying if you're interested in the game at all, I would pick it up for $60. Yeah, it'll probably be really worth it for you. If you are new to the franchise or you've seen the films and you kind of thought that's kind of cool, I don't know, you might want to wait or kind of wait till your friend picks it up and see what they think, because I think half of my good experience with this is because I'm used to the trilogy, so I know what to look for, and I kind of know what interests me already. So if basically you have any interest at all, go ahead and pick it up. It should be worth it to you, I think, and you'll probably definitely like it. It's a fun game to play. Whether you're not a fan of story or you are, it's still going to be really fun to play, and that's where I want to get to with the villain system. So pre-launch, you probably heard Monolith, any interviews with them, talking about the Nemesis system, the one thing that stands out in their game, and that's probably because it's the only thing that stands out in the gameplay. Now, this isn't bad. I didn't mean that in a harsh way, but when people say, what's one of the best things about your game, and they say Nemesis system, and then they ask them 20 times over in different reviews or interviews, and they say the Nemesis system, I'm thinking that's probably a huge role in the game, and it is. You basically, and this is going to be spoiler free, so don't worry about it, I'm just going to kind of tell you about how you play the game. They put you into this map, and the map size, I was a little shocked on this. It's kind of like, it's hard to describe. It's in terms of like Skyrim big, of course it's not going to be as big. And I'm sorry if you expected that from this game, but I would say Skyrim is a large map, and say Arkham City is a medium, and I'm trying to think of anything else that would be smaller is probably like a direct storyline where you have to go through a map a certain way to beat a game. I would say it's a round medium, maybe give or take a few parts of the map. It's not as big as I would like, but it's big enough to satisfy. The environment, of course, it's in Mordor, so it's got that gritty feeling to it, which is cool. I mean, they have it, its structures are what sets the environment apart. So you can be like, oh, I know that tower, or oh, there's the gate, I know where that is. You can still tell places apart by the structures and by the mountain, the terrain. You can kind of tell it varies a little bit. So you can still make your way around the environment pretty good. There is a fast travel system. Once you come to a tower, you can use Brimbor, whatever his name is. You can use the tower and save it as a fast travel point. So with that said, it's still pretty fun. Now what sets this game apart is what happens when it gives you the control. Once you can start walking around the environment, you notice that there are many packs of orcs. There's orcs slaving people, there's orcs tracking food, there's orcs on the hunt. Some will try to be hunting you, and it's very cool. It looks like something that would be in the films. Like you can see a pack of orcs tracking something, and you can follow them and slaughter them if you want, or if you can wait till they get out of their way so you can get to your goal point wherever that might be. But yeah, back to the Nemesis system. It's very important, because when you encounter these structures, usually you'll encounter these packs of orcs, and usually one of them is a captain, and that will kind of like initiate the Nemesis system for you, because once they strike a hit on you or you strike on them, it'll go into an animation where it zooms up on their face, and you know who they are, kind of know what they do by the title of their name, like whether they're a slaver or an archer, hunter, whatever. You kind of get an idea on how they fight, so that can kind of hint at what you should do probably to take them down. Now, I will say one thing. I don't know if it's just like a glitch or something that happened on my first try, but it was very difficult because I walked into a group of orcs by this really cool looking tower structure, because it was between where my mission was and where I was, so I had to go through it. I mean, I could have gone around it, but it would have taken a long time, so I decided to go through it, and that's probably where the tactics comes in, because I have poor tactics. But I go in and I get attacked by this group of orcs, which I'm like, okay, I can take these out. One of them turns out to be a captain, and so I'm like, all right, well, I better use him to get into the Nemesis system and get some clues on, captains higher up. And as I'm fighting him, this other orc captain passes me, and he starts fighting me. So I'm fighting two captains and both of their groups, which is kind of already too much to handle. And then a third guy comes out of nowhere. He's a captain. He's got a group. I was instantly dead. They each ranked up for killing me, and I had to restart where I was. Now, I don't know if that's something that's supposed to happen. I didn't know you were going to be fighting several of them at the same time. It becomes very difficult, and which is interesting because starting off the game, it didn't let me choose a difficulty. I'm usually the guy that starts off by playing normal, and if I really like it and I'm really good at it, I'll go back and play it on a harder difficulty. This one just feels like you have to do it you have to play a certain way until you get those upgrades, and then once you get the upgrades, you're able to fight whoever you want. So with that said, it was very difficult. You definitely need to plan your attacks. You need to, which is actually to stop there. From the beginning, it's very hard to even plan attacks because you start off with your weapon, your melee weapon, and your bow, and your bow can only shoot like I think 2 or 3 arrows before you have to go find some and pick them up to shoot more. So it's not like you can just plan out and shoot out enemies from a long way. You can do stealth attacks, but that's useless when it comes to packs of orcs walking together, because one of them will spot you out. So it's very difficult from the start, but I will say now that I've increased my upgrades, gotten a lot of perks, gotten a lot of runes, which are things you get from, it's kind of like a overall perk for your weapons. You get them as you kill captains. Once you get those, you get a lot of bonuses. You'll start being able to fight a little more easily. So I'm sure by the end of the game I will definitely be going through the entire map swiftly. Now, so with that said, I mean, overall, I think the gameplay, even though it is difficult, it's very fun once you get used to it, and it kind of adds this kind of this fear aspect, because you want to watch out, always keep your eye on your surroundings. You want to make sure that when you go in for a group, it's going to be that group you can kill them and move fast, because you linger too long, and another group will pass by, and you'll have to fight them too. So it's very interesting when it comes to that. So finishing off, kind of my thoughts on Shadow of Mordor so far is it sequel worthy? Now, of course, I haven't finished the game yet, and I wouldn't want to spoil it for you anyway, but I definitely think with the amount of marketing this game has, that the game is going to sell pretty well, and it's going to, of course, you know, any company makes money and they're like, oh my god, we should make this into a franchise, and then now that's for games that don't already exist in a franchise. So Shadow of Mordor might be a little different, but I could definitely see a sequel coming out. I don't know what's going to happen to main characters in this game, so I don't know if, you know, we're going to live on with Talion through game 2, but I will say that if they did make a sequel, even if it's not with the main character, they could totally, you know, the Lord of the Rings universe is so huge, they could totally go back and forth in the timeline and make different titles. It's definitely an option for them. So that's pretty much my thoughts on Shadow of Mordor so far. If I keep playing it, and like I'm playing it right now as we speak, I've been up like all night. Anyway, if I play through it some more, have some extra feedback that I think would be interesting for those of you wanting to know, I'll definitely make another podcast and release it again. And or if there's something that I'm like, oh wait, nope, I'm stupid, I was wrong, which happens sometimes. It does happen. If it happens and I'm playing it, I'll be like, oh, I should record this and let you guys know. So I'll let you guys know. I'll keep you updated on my thoughts on the game. And once I beat it, I definitely want to tell you guys my thoughts, and I'll probably have like a spoiler podcast, because for those of you who just want to know the story. But anything, let's see. Okay, so Monday night, the second episode of Gotham came out, and I have some criticism on this one. I know last week I talked to you guys about the first episode of Gotham and told you my thoughts on it. It's pretty good. I really liked it. The first episode, you know, they kind of like started off with this gritty, dark feeling, which is fantastic. I mean, I think that's what a lot of people want with the franchise. But as we go forward into the second episode, it kind of came into this kind of like a 60s Batman. It's still serious in some ways, but there's a lot of quirky elements to it. Now, my problem with this is, you know, they started off, the first episode felt like something maybe like the Dark Knight universe could have, you know, very dark and gritty, and then when it goes to the second episode, it turns into this quirky, and that didn't work for me. I don't like the switch off between the two types of styles that these episodes are using. So hopefully throughout the season, the rest of the season, we'll see a kind of more steady stylistic approach to the genre. I will say though, I am very excited for the lineup of villains they have. So like if you've been watching it so far, you know they've got the Penguin. We've seen like the Riddler in there, Edward Nygma, and also with this episode we introduced a few characters. The Dollmaker, a pretty big DC villain. We've also introduced, coming up in the season, we're going to have Victor Zsasz, which would be cool to put the spotlight on him, because, you know, we never get too much detail when it comes to Victor Zsasz in most mediums for Batman. And let's see, there was like Dollmaker's henchmen, but I didn't see any important characters out of them. I mean, I might be wrong, so maybe I'd be like, no, that was so-so, they're from the comics, like, okay, that's fine, but either they didn't act well, or their character wasn't introduced well enough, I thought. And let's see, I saw Professor Pig, I'm pretty sure, which is a very I haven't seen much of him in the comics, but I do know he's there, so I'll be reading up on him for the episodes to come. But anyway, that's my thoughts on Gotham so far. I'm still gonna hang in there and watch it, but I hope it does settle on a stylistic approach. So with that said, I think that is all for today, guys. It's been a very long podcast, and I'm sorry if I bored you to death. But Anyway, I'll be giving you more thoughts on Shadow of Mordor as it comes, and I'll keep you guys updated on Gotham each week as we go forth. I know that next week, October 7th, Drive Club comes out for PlayStation 4. I don't know if it's I can't think of it if it's a one of those exclusive or if it's like a timed exclusive, but I'll be getting that, and I think John might be getting that, and so we'll be giving you our review on that game if you're big on racing games. So with that said, I think that's all for today. I'll see you guys next time on Project Play.